Hello and welcome to Tabletop 24. I'm Alan.
I'm John.
I'm Brian.
And welcome to another episode of We'll Play Again, where we take a look at games that we've played with a focus on how soon we're going to get them back to the table. With an ever-increasing collection, time can be quite precious, so would we play again? We've got Lords of Waterdeep on the table, and this is John's copy, so I'm going to let him kick off.
So this is what I would describe as an intro to board gaming hobby. It's a worker placement game. It's entry level. It's relatively simple. It's one that you could teach your family or a novice group of gamers, no problem at all. It's relatively simple to play. The one thing that I think is maybe a bit of it's not a negative, but a detractor is the fact that it's a Dungeons and Dragons theme. Mm-hmm. It might put people off who have certain idea what Dungeons and Dragons is, and the people that play it. So that could be a negative. It depends on your game group. You might have trouble convincing people that it's worth playing. The theme, talking about this earlier, the theme could be anything. It could be reskinned as anything. It doesn't have to be D&D. It could be a production game. It could be a beer production. It could be forestry. It could be pretty much anything. I mean, the cubes in the game are fighter, wizard, rogue, and cleric. But it's black, purple, orange, and white.
Yeah, you don't really get that front and center in the cards. If you look at the quest cards you get, it just gives you the colours, the cubes you need. It doesn't even say what they are, so you don't need that. Although I think equally the reverse could be true. You can be drawn to it because you like D&D. Yeah, and bring people into the hobby that way. So
yes, it's a sidestep from the RPGs into
it.
Very much so. I mean, it's again, it's probably a good game to lure people into Dungeons and Dragons because it does give you a flavour of the game. I mean, it is skimmed and does give a flavour of the game with the locations and the quests and stuff. But again, it could be anything.
Yeah,
it swings and roundabouts there, I think.
Yeah, and just coming back to the mechanics, it's very tight worker placement. You will only have a certain number of workers to place out. Once you go to a place, you're blocking a place unless there's a special ability or something that in play, and you're done. That's it. You can go there. The board will open up as people build buildings, but it's not going to go massively sprawling options. It will be start pulling out a few of the buildings and then see how you go, and actually somebody might build a building that you are not interested in, that you're not bothered about, so then it even limits your options a bit further.
And the thing with the buildings is by going to a building you're benefiting yourself for sure, but you're also benefiting the owner of the building. If it's not you can give somebody else points which you don't necessarily want to be giving them.
Yeah, and the buildings are much better than the base buildings, but yeah, you helping somebody else's game.
Yeah. Unless you get a quest card that gives you it, there's no real variable player powers in this. Your lord that you draw for your faction will give you a quest. Collect Skullduggery and Arcana. So you focus on those quests to get the most points at the end. But there's no. If there was some variable player powers that you dealt out, sort of, you get an extra one of these, or you could do that, or that may give it a bit more variability. Because at the end of the day, when you take your turn, you're limited to the choices that you have left. If you go first, if you choose to go first, you have the pick. And if you're at the end of that tail, it might be, oh, I can get 1 purple. Oh, I can get 4 coins. Oh, I can do this. And in some ways, this is where the expansion in Skullport opens it up a bit more, and the buildings will open it up a bit more. But it can be limiting in that number of choices. Don't get me wrong. That is the sign of a good design. If it's tight and limited to that, I don't mind that at all. It doesn't bother me at all.
So the intrigue cards give it a bit more flavour and a bit more options there. So this is where you get an element of a bit of take that in there, because you play the intrigue cards on the other players to stimulate their advancements or to roll back some of their achievements, essentially. And they're not all particularly having to be given those. So there's a little bit of you've got to be prepared to have those paid upon you. And with the mentioned title placement, sometimes you've got no choice but to just play an intrigue card.
Yeah, I mean Skullport. If you go on Skullport, and you can get some quite powerful parts of the game, the cubes, but you also take a corruption, which will give you minus points at the end. So it's it balances out, giving you some great stuff, but we're giving you some rubbish as well.
I think it's worth explaining a bit more about how this works. This is quite clever because the more corruption people take as a group, the more everyone suffers if you've got any corruption. So, and there are cards in the deck that just throw it out of the game completely. So there's no way of recovering that.
Yeah, and I think my last game I played it quite clever that I made sure everybody had enough corruption, and I just went, no, I'm not taking any. And I'll take any that I've got and I'll remove it from the game.
I think I managed to get down to about 2 or 3 at the end, but I had to do quests to mitigate, to get rid of the things. So, it's a great expansion. It plays up to 6 with the expansion, 4 players. Without it, it's about, I'd say about 20, 25 minute teach.
Yeah.
Probably about an hour and a half play. I mean, one of the things that I like about modern board games in general is there is an end. There is an end condition, and there will be points awarded or a winner at the end of that, rather than something that's, childhood games of Monopoly where it just goes on and on and on, and we'll pack it up for tonight and carry on tomorrow. Well, we won't know. Of course, we won't. I like the fact that this has an end conditions and there's a winner, and it's all wrapped up. So an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think it's a quick game. I think. The base game on its own, we mentioned the expansions are add to the game, but even the base game on its own, there's a lot of replayability in there. I played the game 3 or 4 times, I think, before we brought the expansion in. And I enjoyed it all the time. So I think there is merit in just getting the base game. You don't need to get the expansion to have a good game with it.
Yeah. And just obviously to say on there that Skullport is one part of the expansion. There is
Undermountain.
Yeah, but we've tended to avoid that so far. But I think the Skullport does add enough. Yeah. The base game is replayable. Yeah. But I think, not to give my final conclusions away too soon, but I think the base game itself is quite limited. I think you can replay it. There is different options into it, but I think if you take these out, like, so you start off, you've only got these to start with. Then each round you're only going to get one extra place to go, and it does really condense that game down a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of it being the base game, Stone Age, Catan, they are very tight, limited rule sets and limited options. Again, Catan is the luck of the resources. Stone Age, again, it's where everybody else has gone. That's very much like this as well. So it's kind of like that. If you've played any of those, it's like those in effect. And I dare say we're going to do Catan and Stone Age at some point in the future, so we'll probably cover this again.
Yeah.
But I like this game. It's one that I can't wait to teach to my family now they're getting to the age where they can play games. I know my son and wife will probably get a kick out of it. It's one. It's one that if you look at any poll or any comments online and people saying worker placement games to get people into hobby, this is one of those ones that's always on that list, if not at the top. And for a good reason. There's nothing wrong with it. It plays really well, and it's a great game.
So then, John, would you play again?
Yes, I would. Soon now, whichever one. If it was on the table and I walked into games tonight, I'd try and jump in on it. I'd put it off the shelf if I had to introduce people to the hobby. Would play again now.
Right.
I love this game. I'd play it again soon. Because I'm always happy to play this game. If it's been suggested, definitely I'm in there. I like the theme as well. I know it can be different themes, but I like the D&D franchise. So it also draws me to this game as well. Yeah.
So controversially, I would hesitate to play again. Now, the reason why I say that is, and I think exactly to John's point, it's a very good introductory game. It's something you can get people into the hobby with. Yep. It's something you can bring out, and it's an easy teach. And a lot of people have played it, so if you're looking for common ground, you've got that. And I think a lot of modern board games have got this to thank for a lot of it, the mechanics and the sort of the structure. But I do think that there are better games out there that do what this does, particularly if you strip it back to just the base game. Now, those games wouldn't exist without this one.
No.
But I think there are games out there that now do that better. I think potentially if he was looking for a larger player count worker placement, then yes, fair enough. But then all that does is then make that tighter, and I think you need the expansions to blow it out a bit.
If if we had four players going to games night, for instance, I would take Clank over this. I think I would rather play Clank over this. I think it comes down to what you're comfortable playing. This is very competitive when we play it, and that's down to the number of times we've played it and how we play games. But we know it, and I think that adds to the game for me, that it is so competitive. There is no quarter taken, and like I need to do this, and I like that, and I think the games that we have where we have played them that much, and there is no quarter taken, and we're really competitive, I get loads out of, because I enjoy those loads. And I think looking back at past videos that we've done, 9 Worlds may well become like that as well, because I think that there will be no quarter taken between any of us when we play it.
Once you'll know the nuances of the game.
Exactly. And I think there's a lot to be said for that in this game. And like you say about different games do this really well, it's where you find your niche or your like in the game's environment. I prefer this type of game, I prefer that type of game. We all agree there's nothing wrong with this game, and there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with Century Spice Road. It's a very playable game, and a lot of people like it. But my preference is no, and
that's it for me.
And that's what these videos are about. It's all about personal opinion, and that's why we discuss them, and that's why we're making these videos, because we love the board games.
Yeah. So with that, thank you for joining us for another episode of We'll Play Again. If you haven't done so already, check out other videos on the channel, give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Bye.
Goodbye.
See you later.